Hello everyone, I am Nenika and today we are going to discuss agglomerative hierarchical clustering using average linkage. Let's look at the definition first. In this clustering, start with one cluster, item in its own cluster and iteratively merge clusters until all the items belongs to one cluster. This is a bottom-up approach. Dendrograms are used to represent HAC, that is hierarchical agglomerative clustering. We will use average linkage to compute the distance between two clusters. This method involves looking at the distance between all pairs and averages all of these distances. This is also called unweighted pair group mean averaging. Given is a formula to compute the distance between two clusters Ci and Cj. Let's look at the example. Given is a matrix in which distance between clusters are given. This is a symmetric matrix. As we know, distance between two cluster P1 and P2 is same as the distance between cluster P2 and P1. And also diagonal entries are 0. Let's start. First step is to choose the smallest distance. Now smallest distance is 2, which is the distance between cluster P3 and P5. So first we combine these two clusters P3 and P5. Next step is to compute proximity. Now we have only 4 clusters P1, P2, P3, P5 and P4. So we update the distance between them. P1 to compute the distance between P1 and P3, P5 is the average of the distance between P1 and P3 and the distance between P1 and P5, which is 7. Similarly, we have compute all the distance. So we update the matrix. P1 distance between P1 and P2 is same as before. Distance between P1 and P4 is same as before, but distance between P1 and new cluster, which is P3 and P5, is updated to 7. Similarly, all the distance are updated. Next step is to repeat the steps until we get single cluster. Now again, we compute the smallest. We find the smallest distance, which is 5 between the cluster P2 and P4. So we combine these two clusters to one new cluster. Now we have only three clusters P1, P2, P4 and P3, P5. Similarly, repeat the step. And finally, we have only two clusters P1, P3, P5 and P2, P4. And combine these two also, which is a single cluster containing all the points P1, P2, P3, P4 and P5. Here is a dendrogram representation of HAC. First, we had combined P3 and P5, so we joined these two clusters using a line. Then we had combined P2 and P4, and then P1 to P3, P5, and at the end we have combined two clusters, which is P1, P3, P5, and P2, P4 to a single cluster. Thank you.